The People's Hotline drives the conversation every time, right here, right now, on The Dangerous Ones.
The shots been fired, but the war ain't won. These white boys with money better learn how to run. The wall hits your back, the blood's on your tongue. You and me, baby, we're the dangerous
one. Welcome, everybody. Our guest today is someone who spent decades fighting for Oregonians and pushing for progressive change in the heart of the U.S. Senate. He's a staunch advocate for privacy rights, healthcare reform, and environmental protection, currently serving as the chair of the Senate Finance Committee and also sitting on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee and the Committee on the Budget. He made headlines recently when he skipped Trump's address to the joint session of Congress in favor of a town hall, which he is known for having done over 1,100. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Ron Wyden.
Thank you. This is a
Thank you so
wonderful
much.
program.
Thank you.
Thank you. First off, 10 Democratic senators voted yes on the most recent continuing resolution to fund the government through September, including Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. We're seeing an outpouring of anger across America about that decision. You voted no. First of all, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for voting.
I voted against cloture.
That's right.
Thank
I
you.
voted against the continuing resolution, and I voted against Trump and Musk trying to bully the American people.
Thank you.
Love it.
And can you walk our listeners through why you and how you came to that decision?
It, to me, was a question of whether or not you would empower Trump, which is what a shutdown would do, because he could do practically anything based on our analysis, or you were going to stand up to him now. And the American people, and certainly what I hear at all of my town hall meetings, I've had more than 1,100 of them now, is people said, don't duck again.
Yeah.
If we don't do everything we can to stop him now, he's just going to take more and more and more. And I think that's what made up my mind.
So we've had a ton of calls and emails from people across America. This is a national show. Catherine, Melena, Susan, Simone, Brent from right here in Oregon, Newberg, Oregon, just to name a few, urging Democrats to fight hard and vote no on the CR and just generally to obstruct the MAGA authoritarian takeover in every way possible. There's a bit of desperation out there. I'm sure you've felt it. I'm sure you
I
go
just
to
came from a
ton of
meeting
town
with
halls.
federal employees,
There you go.
and they are just terrified at the arbitrary way in which the Trump administration deals with them and yanks them from here to there and then deposits them somewhere else. It is really outrageous the way they're being treated. And I and Senator Merkley and our congressional delegation made it clear. In fact, they were having some real questions about their health care because they had apparently lost it just practically overnight. And my staff and I stayed back later in order to get the health team from the Senate Finance Committee, get them the very best people. And we started on it right this afternoon after the program was over.
That's great. Well, we have a call from Casey in California who has a question sort of along these lines.
Senator, my name is Casey, and I'm one of more than 1,200 political science professors that have signed an open letter ringing alarm bells that the Trump administration is undermining the rule of law and the Constitution. Most of us would now say that Democratic backsliding is proceeding so quickly that the U.S. form of government is better characterized as a competitive authoritarian regime than a consolidated democracy. Unlike never-Trump Republicans, it does not seem that elected Democrats understand the magnitude of the threat that Trump poses to the constitutional order. Are we wrong? Am I wrong to think that? Can you help us understand whether and how the national Democrats understand the magnitude of the problem? Are they thinking about, winning marginal seats in the next election, or do they really understand that the rule of law itself and the Constitution are under threat? I would feel better if you could tell us that people in Washington in positions of power understand the problem, but I also fear that that is not the case. And I do think the never-Trump Republicans get that in ways that I don't hear the national Democrats getting the threat. So if you could offer us some explanation or some context to help us understand the the ideas that national Democrats have about what's going on, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
This Democrat understands authoritarianism all too well. My dad fled the Nazis at 13, and he came to the United States. He talked his way into our army. He was part of the famous Ritchie Boys, the German kids who dropped the propaganda pamphlets on the Nazis telling them they should give up. And as I've been looking at the rising tide of authoritarianism, I said to myself, I'm going to make sure that my kid, my wife and I are older parents, our youngest is 13, I'm going to make sure that she doesn't have to grow up fleeing authoritarianism like her grandfather.
Wow. Do you feel like Democrats are getting that message as a whole?
I think Democrats are understanding how Doge and Musk are stripping so many of their rights. For example, as the ranking Democrat in the Finance Committee, I'm spending a lot of time working to block Trump and his efforts to privatize Social Security. And one of the areas I'm particularly concerned about is the way Doge is violating the privacy rights of millions of Americans. The data that has Social Security information and all of this personal data about families and the like, it is a Fort Knox of personal data information. We're going to have a Social Security nominee coming before the Finance Committee in the next few days, and we are really going to take it to the administration on this because they are stomping all over the privacy rights of Americans on my watch, and we're not going to stand for it.
We have another call.
We do. This is Carol from Florida, and she wants to know if there's anything Democrats can do to stop Doge from destroying everything that they're destroying.
My name is Carol. I live in Florida. Hello, Senator Wyden. Is there any power the Democrats have in Congress to declare an emergency and petition the Supreme Court to stop this unlawful destruction of the departments Doge is closing down? Or at least the Democrats could carry this message every day to every media outlet available to show the American people that this is an emergency. You cannot be silent. You must think of ways to megaphone this, or people will just buy their narrative, destroy their narrative. That's what the Dems should be doing. Thank you.
We should always remember that one of our best strengths is our voice is a bullhorn, and we want to reach out to as many people across the country. I made the point today, for example, that if older people who are in the audience have friends in AARP, which has millions of members, they ought to reach out because if they do, they can help us, for example, protect veterans and deal with some of these other pressing concerns.
And her concern as well was she was asking, is there anything that Democrats can do to petition the Supreme Court? Is there anything that Democrats can do?
Well, I've proposed a major court reform proposal, starting with finally having some ethics for the Supreme Court justices. You know, their popularity has dropped about 20 points. It used to be they were regarded with great reverence in our country, a separate branch of government, and there weren't a lot of scandals and the like. Now people look at these big contributors who have matters before the court, billionaires, and they're saying this is not the independence the Founding Fathers had in mind. And my court reform proposal would at least put some strong ethics rules in place, and I think it's long overdue.
Our next call is from Beth in Illinois, and let's hear her concern.
Hey guys, this is Beth from Illinois. Just wanted to let you know I'm one of the younger ones on Social Security disability, and I am so beyond terrified. I cannot believe what they're doing to our country, and I want to know where the hell our Democratic leaders are. I understand there are some people speaking out, but what are they doing to protect us? I will literally die. I will be homeless. I will waste away from my illness, and I will orphan my children. I can't do this, you guys. We can't let this happen. Thanks for everything you're doing, and good luck to all of us.
It's heartbreaking to hear your words. And I want you to know that next week, when we have someone from the Social Security Administration, and they'll probably be making visits on the Hill. We've been told they're going to put them before the Finance Committee soon. I'm going to use your story about what it's really like for a disabled person. As we know, there's several arms to Social Security. There's the retirement arm, then there's the Medicare arm, there's the disability arm. And people who are using disability, they don't have political action committees. They don't have big lobbies. Well, I want to be your lobbyist because I understand from my days as co-director of the Oregon Gray Panthers what a challenge it is to walk on an economic tightrope as a disabled person trying to get by and trying to make ends meet. And you'll be first and foremost on my mind when we go to those hearings.
Thank you for that, Senator. And do you believe that over the next 4 years, there'll be any, people who currently get Social Security, will there, checks every month? Do you believe that something will happen over the next 4 years where those dollars go down?
My view is that starting with Elon Musk, who has called Social Security a Ponzi scheme, this administration is trying to hollow out Social Security. They're trying to whittle back the technology that's being used. They're trying to whittle back the staff. We've heard from employees at Social Security in Portland about the problems. And if you look at the history of doing this kind of thing to important government programs, it leads you to privatization. And my take is that what Elon Musk is about right now is a prelude to privatization. And talk about what you want to be vigilant about on our watch. Fighting privatization will be at the top of my list.
I know we have an email next.
Yeah, so we have an email from one of your constituents. Her name is Annie, and she's from Oregon. And I'm just going to read her email on her behalf. So she says, I'm very worried that funding for nursing homes through Medicaid and Medicare are at risk. My 96-year-old grandmother depends on that care, and my family isn't able to take that care on if the funding disappears. What will you do to make sure that our seniors, the same generation that gave all to fight Hitler, can remain in nursing homes if Medicaid and Medicare funds drastically
People
are
can
cut?
see it online, but I questioned Mehmet Oz, who's the nominee for the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services before the Finance Committee, on just this question. There was a rule that the Biden administration got through stipulating that nursing homes had to actually have a nurse. And there has been some effort to roll that back. And so I asked Mehmet Oz about this. I said, do you believe that there ought to be a nurse in a nursing home? And he said, and I quote, that's really complicated. Do you believe in a nursing home there should be a registered nurse available around the clock 24/7? The reason I ask this is because that is the rule that is coming up, but there's going to be an effort to roll it back. So do you think we ought to have nursing homes without nurses?
Senator Wyden, as you know, it's a complicated question. Because
no, it's not. We need a nurse in a nursing home, not too complicated. And I said, no, it's not complicated. It's really straightforward. You want to have a nurse at nursing homes, and he then pretended that all of this could be resolved by things like telemedicine. And I do a lot of technology work, and I basically said afterwards, that's just a ridiculous proposition because telemedicine isn't going to help people who need to get to the bathroom in the middle of the night. You're going to need a nurse, and we're going to bring this up constantly. And the American people have made it clear, based on everything that came in afterwards, they don't want to see nursing homes without nurses, and we're going to take Oz on this.
We have one last call that we wanted to get to, and this is from a blue dot in a red state. We get a lot of those calls.
I'll bet.
And they're calling us, Senator, because they want to remind us that, hey, there's good people.
They're out there.
They're out there.
Lots of them.
And so this is from Anonymous in Texas, and he had a question for you, Senator.
This is Anonymous from Texas. I have a question for Senator Wyden. First of all, Senator, thank you for coming on the podcast and taking our questions. I live in Texas, where I'm represented by congressmen and senators who have no interest in doing anything other than bending the knee to Trump. What can I do to try to push back against all of these awful policies and get my elected representatives to care? Thank you so much.
My view is that political change hardly ever starts at the top and then trickles down. It's almost always just the opposite. It's grassroots up.
Yeah.
And what I'd recommend is really two things. One, to see if you can form a little group of friends who share your view. And if you can, start speaking out, slowly but surely, a letter to the editor if you have a newspaper, do something online, get mailings and that kind of thing to your congressional people. So they begin to say, I wonder how many of the people like this are out there. And you start to get them off their game and get them rattled. Second, I feel really strongly you ought to reach out to progressive people in other states. You look, for example, at organizations like AARP. There are a lot of progressive members now with the growth of the demographic, the number of senior people growing. Reach out to them and say, look, if you're in a state like mine, let's start growing. Let's do this together, and we ought to have our voices heard too.
And then we have time, I think, for we have one last email we wanted to get to.
We do.
And if you would, go ahead and read that one.
Okay. It's anonymous. She is an angry parent. Her daughter went to medical school for 9 years with a career trajectory in medical research. And now that all of the funding has been cut for the FDA and NIH and CDC, and measles is spreading, there's a lot of worry, and really smart people are being sidelined by this anti-science administration. Her question is, what do we do now that these tax breaks for the wealthy will harm and possibly kill Americans? How do we stop Trump and Musk from sending us back to the 1800s?
Well, I'm working right now as the ranking Democrat on the Finance Committee because I think we know the distillation of the Trump economic plan. The Trump economic plan is to cut things like hunger and Medicaid and use that money to give even more breaks at the top to the very wealthy people. And we're going to constantly be talking, for example, in our state here in Oregon, 1 out of 4 people depend on Medicaid. And Medicaid pays much of the nursing home bill. So I think we keep putting these choices in front of the public. I think the public understands. We like success. We want everybody to be successful. We want to give everybody in America the chance to get ahead and not just have people of modest means subsidizing the people at the top. That's not right, and I'm going to lead the fight to block it.
And finally, Senator, we'll just kind of part with this. We here on this podcast believe that the best thing we can do is amplify real stories. That's why we have the People's Hotline. That's why we have people calling in. I was kind of curious what you thought the best way over the next 4 years for people to fight back, because we believe, if people hear their neighbors' hardships about how they're being impacted by these policies, that, maybe when you hear your neighbor not doing so well, it kind of changes who you're going to vote for. And maybe you won't vote for people who enact those policies. Senator, do you have any parting words of advice on what we can do to fight back, and any words of encouragement? Are we going to be okay?
Well, I'm of the view that if we do what we need to do at the grassroots level, there are a lot of Republicans that aren't going to be able in the United States Senate to support that. I mean, if Trump continues to oppose veterans the way he's doing, that's a big part of the Republican base in these rural areas. And the Senate is mostly a rural institution. And I think what we need to do is figure out how to reach out to those places. I mean, you mentioned health research. They're some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, where health research is not just something that's important for their families. And for example, we in Oregon, we're very proud of the progress we've made on pancreatic cancer, which has been so serious. But it's also a problem of jobs, that so many jobs revolve around healthcare research. I don't think all these Republican senators can constantly be anti-jobs in their community.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come over here as lifelong Oregonian and Portlander. It's truly an honor. Thank you so much.
Well, and let me also say that I think these issues you're talking about very much track the book that I have out called It Takes Chutzpah, because what we need are some people with grit and determination, and they're going to take on the odds. You mentioned what to do about folks in rural areas where there aren't people of a like mind in terms of progressive politics. We have the 12 rules of chutzpah, one of which is work with anybody who's going to do the right thing. But if they aren't, take them on.
Fantastic. And we'll include a link to that book as well. And thank you, Senator, so much for
To
your
be
time.
continued.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming
so
in.
much. Wow. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
In studio.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
studio.
In
That was
studio.
really great of him to actually come in.
To
and-
make the time.
Yeah. I mean, he's a very busy guy. He does all these town halls.
Right.
Yep.
He came
Over 1,000.
directly from a town hall to come here.
And
Yeah.
he's got like 2 more tomorrow.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So
Pretty
that was
cool.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
You know.
signed the wall.
He signed the wall.
Yeah.
He signed the wall.
Yeah.
We thought he was just going to sign a signature.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
went full on out with a
Yeah,
message.
he's
It
like
was
the
great.
dangerous ones. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
cat has done it before.
Yeah,
you know?
he knows what he's doing.
It's not his
He
first
does.
time.
Yep.
Well, let's dive in a little bit about what he talked about. You know, I think the first call out right away is, you know, a lot of our callers and a lot of the emails were about, what do we do?
Yeah.
And I think one of the most important things he did say is what he didn't say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is, there's no magic answer.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know,
Mhm.
it's a lot of start small, grassroots, because there's no other way. I mean, we're not in power right now.
Yeah.
The Democrats are not in power right now. So
Yeah.
he basically was like, start small, grassroots, and go bigger.
Yeah.
It was really great just to hear a Democrat say, you got to start with each other. You got to start in the
Yep.
streets. You got to start with grassroots. That's the only way to change it.
Yeah. Nick,
Yeah.
your thoughts on
I mean,
that?
Yeah, his response to Anonymous in Texas,
Mhm.
who was asking about, you know, what can he do when he
Mhm.
has just MAGA reps, you know, his
Start
answer
small,
was,
yeah.
was like, find some people in your community, find some people in other states who are in a situation like you, start organizing. And, you know, I think we all know that that's really true. And I think sort of the underlying message there is regardless of whether your House representative or your senator is MAGA or Democrat or Rhino or pseudo Democrat or whatever, however you want to classify them, get loud.
Get loud.
Yeah.
Get loud.
And in his book, he brought that up about how work with people who want to do the right thing. And if they're not willing to do the right thing, then move on.
Yeah.
Get somebody else.
Yeah. And, but again, it's a little bit of a sobering moment.
It is.
When you ask a senator that's sitting 5 feet from you, are we going to be okay? You know, what do we do? And the overall answer is, we got to do what we've always done. And that is, it all starts grassroots.
Yep.
And, you know, there's no magic.
And obviously he's doing a lot of great and hard work in the Senate. He was one of the people who refused to go to Trump's address,
That's right.
as you said at the beginning.
And he held an online town hall.
He held an
instead.
online town hall instead of going to Trump's address. He voted no on the continuing resolution. So like he's doing his part. He was talking about his work in the Senate Finance Committee. Like he's doing what he can, but it's going to take the people.
Yeah.
It's going to
Yeah.
take us.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. You know, being a lifelong Oregonian and a lifelong Portlander, and Tiffany, you as well, you know, the guy's a legend around here, you know, and you can say what you want about this or that, but, you know, he had as he said, the chutzpah to vote no on the CR bill. And, you know, I thank him for that.
Yeah. And not only did he say that, he said that he was voting against the not just the CR, but the whole
cloture,
everything behind it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, just the philosophy of it. He wants to put a wrench into the gears and gum everything up and stop. You know, you can tell.
Yeah.
And he's doing what he can. But yeah, again.
Yeah. And the one thing I love
Us.
about Ron Wyden is he's, you know, we've been voting. I've been voting for him since I was 18 years
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
He came to our high school and he even mentioned it today. And I was like, I remember that. He probably doesn't believe me, but that's okay. But he's always been this person.
Yeah,
he's
he has.
never deviated from who he is. He
Yeah.
says what he means and he means what he says.
Yep.
And I really appreciate that.
He's one of the good ones.
Yeah,
and,
he is.
And for people who don't know, Ron Wyden does a open town hall once a year in every single district in Oregon. That's
County.
36 counties in Oregon. He does 36 a year, at least, which over the years now has done over 1,100.
1,100.
That, like you said earlier, Nick, that is representation.
That's right.
Yep.
You know,
Wouldn't you love to see that from every
Yes.
elected member of
Yes.
Congress?
My
I
God.
certainly would.
This whole place would look different.
Yeah.
You know, and anybody, and this is something else as well. As we get totally poured on, I don't know if the audience can hear it, but we're being rained on. It's crazy.
It'll only last for 8 minutes, and then it'll be over. That's what I love about Portland. You know,
It was actually hailing too.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I would say is that he came on our podcast. We're brand new, you know, and he came on. He didn't have to, you know. We don't have some special, you know. He doesn't owe us a favor,
Right.
you know.
Right.
He came on because he cares about his constituents, and that
Yeah.
really meant a lot.
Well, and I also think that he came on when I reached out to his team. I kind of relayed the concept of what we're doing, and that we're driven by the voices of the people, and we have the People's Hotline, and like that's his I mean, he does 1,100 town hall. Like that's his
That's his jam.
bag.
Right.
That's his
yeah,
jam.
that's
Yeah.
his jam. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic,
Yeah.
and I just appreciate him doing that. And we move on from here.
We move on.
Yeah, and to everybody who called and asked Ron a question on the People's Hotline, thank you so much. Everybody who sent in emails, thank you so much. We apologize that we didn't get to share all of them.
There were a lot of them.
There
There
Yeah.
were. But we tried to get a general sense of what everybody was asking, and we shared as many with him as we could with his short amount of time. And we just thank him for coming in. And we thank everybody for watching the Dangerous Ones podcast, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.